Welcome to Astrolunachick's Guide to the Universe. I am your host, Susan, aka Astrolunachick, and it's been a while. Yeah, I couldn't even tell you, maybe at least a year since I have recorded a show, which is fine because time doesn't exist anyway. So, I've always said the party starts when I get there. I show up. Anyway, it is December 31st, New Year's Eve, 12:31, one of my favorite numbers. And I hope you enjoy the lovely picture background that I have. That was taken by me. In in a wooded area, country road close to where I live. And I love the sign, winding road up ahead, go slowly. That's kind of what this year feels like. As I was looking at the upcoming aspects for the planets for this year, we are in uncharted territory, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you realize this, but it is time to embrace the new. And what do I mean by that astrologically? Well, when we have the slower moving planets, such as Pluto, which is in Aquarius and it went into Aquarius. Um, it's been in Aquarius for a while now. Um, it left Capricorn and went into Aquarius last year permanently, but it kind of drifted in and out due to its retrogrades, uh, as with the planet Uranus. And Uranus entered Gemini, and man, did things really pick up. The novelty increased. We were talking a lot about the things that Uranus rules, like technology. Um, Uranus and Pluto, I look at these planets as also new energy sources. I mean, we would all love to see, 0 point free energy. And, I know it exists in the world, but, it's not turning my lights on. The best we can hope for is solar. And, you know, when Uranus, Uranus did retrograde back into Taurus. It was in Taurus for many years. And that's where we saw a lot of the more popularization of cryptocurrency. And now with Uranus retrograde at the tail end of Taurus, again, now they are talking about, if you're paying attention to crypto, it's been this move towards tokenization, meaning everything will be on the blockchain. And all the infrastructure is in place, trust me. When Uranus goes back into Gemini, it will sextile Pluto, and we're on a new financial system. The infrastructure is already there. And as concerned as some people might be, you're not even going to know that you're using crypto because crypto is like the the rails of the system and the banks are using it. There are more people who are investing, and now that 401ks can get into crypto ETFs. The Bitcoin ETF did shit this year, by the way. It actually went negative. But now we have other new ETFs like XRP. So if that interests you, you should maybe look into it. Not financial advice, but all this to say that the new structure is already here. The new structure of reality is coming. Last year, we had Saturn and Neptune cross over the Aries point from Pisces into Aries. For Neptune, we've never seen that in our lifetime. And Saturn going into Aries, quite a different energy. So, you know, Aries is new. It's pioneering. It's the individual. It's fire energy. I wouldn't say that Saturn does well there. It can be a challenge or a struggle. The challenge is to reinvent yourself, to move with the changes, to not be so impulsive as Aries energy is prone to be. Um, Saturn is restraint. So it's an, not a it's not a harmonious blend of energies, but and it's a lot to manage. I could tell you, I have Saturn in Aries. It's not fun. It's like hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. But it really, I would say, focuses on personal responsibility and restraint and long-term planning and deferred gratification. So those are just some of the things that we may be looking at. And Saturn is traveling along with Neptune. And Neptune has spent a long time in Pisces. Neptune rules Pisces. So it was very strong. So the delusion was very strong. Um, all of the Piscean themes came up, like, um, Christianity is a Piscean religion. It's the uh, concept of the Savior, of just faith in something greater. And with Saturn there, I mean, that's a planet of restrictions. So losing hope, um, i- if we're waiting for someone else to take over the reins and absolve us of the responsibility, that's not happening. And Pisces being a very collective sign, Saturn being, um, let's say, the planet of struggle and obstacles and overcoming, we as a collective, I believe, are coming out of this mindset of, something outside of ourself is going to save us. And while there is divine assistance, and Saturn and Neptune together can bring, let's say, a manifestation of spirituality or relying on faith and something, let's say it is something outside of us, because it's spirit, right? But it is tapping into that inner connection to spirit, to something non-physical, right? Now, the other part of that is we can't just sit there and wait. right? I mean, you can pray and you can trust and you can believe that you're being divinely guided, protected, and this is true, I believe. Uh, but we still have to take action, right? Faith without works is dead, to quote the Bible. Uh, we have to take action. We have to take personal responsibility and be accountable and not expect someone else uh, to do it for us, you know? Saturn is like the representation of the father, and we are still children when we expect a parent to step in and save the day. You know, I know it's not written anywhere, but another saying I like to quote is the Lord helps those who help themselves. And I think that's true too. The Lord, God, whatever, however you want to frame it. But Saturn and Neptune going into Aries is, wow, it really is up to us individually. And it will focus on personal faith and spirituality, personal connection, divine guidance, and I would say a reckoning of karma. I mean, what I call karma, but what I define as cause and effect. It is, if this, then that. There are um, consequences to every action, positive and negative. Instant karma is going to get you. But back to that picture that you see before you, facing west and the beautiful sky of the setting sun. I love that picture. It's the stark contrast between the bare naked trees and the clouds and the silver lining and the blue sky just behind it. But our immediate focus after that is the sign. Or maybe it's before. 15 miles an hour. That's pretty slow. But I'll tell you what, on this road, if you are going quickly, what you won't see around the curve is the person who's walking their dog in the middle of the street, because they live there and they kind of like fucking own the street. Um, or the car that's coming in the other direction that, you know, wants to cut the corners and drive down the middle of the street. All right. I had an accident on this very road because there was a big snowbank and I couldn't see around it. And dude was coming up the middle of the street. And I moved over as far as I could, but our cars sideswiped one another. And thank God I had collision, because it covered the damage, which I don't think I even fixed because the car was still drivable. And yeah, I think I just pocketed the check or something like that. But the point is, I could not see around the bend because of the snowbank. And the way this road, as you're looking at it, you can't see if there's a car coming in the opposite direction or if there's somebody walking on the side of the street, on the side of the road or not on the side of the road. One problem I see with these electric vehicles is that you can't hear them. It's like the antithesis of loud pipes save lives, Harleys, and you can hear them coming a mile away. I have walked through a parking lot, nearly stepped in front of a car because I didn't hear it behind me. I wonder what the statistics are on that. Uh, on people getting hit by electric cars because they just didn't hear them. So look both ways. Um, but I think that this road sign is a good analogy for the energy this year. It's going to be hard to see what's around the bend because as planets move from the late degrees of one sign into the early degrees of the next, it's going to make aspects to the larger planets. Like I was talking about Pluto and Uranus. Uranus is new technology, um, unexpected things. And being in the first degrees of a sign, Gemini, we are in uncharted territory. So if big decisions are coming up, I mean, it's the kind of thing where, you know, I think we have to be able to just pivot and quickly deal with whatever situation that comes up without fear. That's Pluto. Um, Pluto and Uranus. One thing I noticed when Pluto and Uranus, Pluto and Aquarius. When Pluto went into Aquarius, I want to say, but I could be wrong. It might have been around the GameStop thing, you know, where this sort of it may have been that and it may have been other things where I saw the collective, which is Aquarius, flexing its power, Pluto. And it was really when Pluto went into Aquarius where I saw, wow, you know what? People have the power to change things when they band together and be of a common mindset. I mean, look at cancel culture. Uh, if a great, great portion of the collective decides that we ain't having it when it comes to a certain thing, then we ain't having it and it ain't happening. And we do have the power to sway things because let me tell you, the Pisces energy with Neptune there and Saturn, that's like we don't have any control. We are a victim of whatever the powers that be want for humanity. And I have said for a long time, because there was a time when I felt that way, like, I was so black-pilled. It's like, oh, it's hopeless. Who cares about politics? It's all a rigged game, yada, yada. And then I realized that, okay, well, now I see a significant portion of humanity waking up. And say what you want about positivity, positive thinking and manifestation and all of that. There's the dark side to that. And it doesn't work the way The Secret laid it out to be. Um, Although there is some truth in it. But read the Kabbalion because it's one sort of spiritual law, the spiritual mechanics, if you will. Um, it's only one, and there are seven. So, um, over the years, I've started to see because, I have my own personal perspective, but I like to watch people. I am a people watcher. I have a moon in Aquarius, and I love social media because I like to hear what people are saying. I like to sort of take the temperature of the collective to see where I think things are going. And I said years ago, I said, wow, I'll bet there's going to be a boycott on taxes. Hmm, you know, if everyone got together and said, listen, we ain't paying taxes. You ain't getting a dime of our money until things change, right? Boycott. I mean, it works. It works. Where we want to put our money, I mean, we vote with our pockets, our pocketbooks. And I just saw today, as the moon was in first few degrees of Gemini, Marjorie Taylor Greene, it said something about a tax revolt. There's a tax revolt coming. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I could see that I could see that this year with Uranus going into Gemini and Uranus's rebellion and making a sextile aspect to Pluto, Pluto in Aquarius. That's the power of the collective. That's power to the people right there. And in the sign of Uranus, rebellion, I could see it happening. And I think it's very interesting, the timing of that quote. I don't know when she said it. I'm looking at when I heard it, when I first saw it, which was maybe about an hour ago. And as of that time, I believe, yeah, the moon was in Gemini. Moon in Gemini in the degrees that once Uranus goes direct, it will be heading back towards. We have a lot of interesting aspects anyway. Uranus is sextiling to Saturn, and that to me is again collective power and authority, right? Personal authority. It's also indicating um, the the laying down of the rails, so to speak, of the like the crypto digital financial system railroad, a means of moving value from one place quickly to another. That's Uranus sextile Saturn, and Neptune is there, so we don't see it. Well, I see it. We, the general public, it's going on behind the scenes, right? Saturn is structure and government. There's new governmental and power structures. That's Saturn. Um, Also restrictions or let's say systems, okay? Because Saturn is sort of this thing that boxes things in 3D into systems and governments and rules and regulations. But Neptune is there, and it's all, those two are still in Pisces. We're not going to see it, like really see it, until Neptune and Saturn move into Aries. And we'll talk a little bit about that when I share my screen. But there's a lot going on. And right now, Mercury, which is information, communication, the mind, trade, moving things from here to there, is making a square, a 90-degree angle to Saturn and Neptune. So, a lot going on in the world that seems to, or at least the narrative seems to center around, let's say, trade and oil and restrictions. Okay, oil and restrictions and overseas foreign trade. Mercury is in Sagittarius. That's overseas, like global, worldwide. And there are currency wars happening. We don't see it, right? But look into, if you're curious about it, go look. The BRICS nations are talking about using a particular crypto um, to trade and avoid sanctions. So if you pay attention, you'll see where the tide is going. But I think it'll really become visible around the eclipses at the end of February, beginning of March, and Neptune going into Pisces, as well as Saturn going into Pisces. We're talking January into February. A lot is changing. We're stepping into a whole new world. And I think it'll be interesting to see what develops out of this supposed tax revolt, because I've seen that coming for years. I mean, I was the first, not the first, but like my first reaction was, well, why are we paying them? If we don't like the way they're running things, shit. Fire them. How do you fire them? Well, you just don't pay them. You don't fund them. Cut off their resources. Boycott. So we'll see what comes up, but let's share the screen so we can see where the planets are. I love that picture, man. I think I'm going to make it my desktop. Actually, my desktop is an aerial view of Dubai. Yeah, Dubai. I gave my kid in his stocking. He's not a kid anymore. Oh my God, he's nearing his Saturn return. Uh, I gave him a Dubai chocolate bar and he cracks up laughing. All right, we're gonna take this now. I'm like, what is so funny? He's like, it's a meme, Mom. Dubai chocolate is a meme. I'm like, "Ah, listen, I don't know. I can't follow everything. I can't follow everything. So, yeah, that's not the one I want. I want Sky Now. I don't know. It's just so funny. I will go look up why. I don't know. It's hard to explain why a meme is funny. And if you have to explain it, then it's not funny. And I was like, don't even explain. I'm glad you got a chuckle out of it. Dubai chocolate. And then then yesterday he texts me and he says, "Where did you get that chocolate? It was so good." I'm like, "Oh, now you're not laughing." And so I bought more, which was great because shit is expensive and I got a bunch of it 50% off. So there you go. Who's laughing now? Alrighty, here's where we're at. Good old Capricorn season. We've got Sun, Mars, Venus, all three in Capricorn. Very lovely. I welcome all this Capricorn energy as I am a Capricorn. And I think my solar return is tomorrow. Happy birthday to me. Moon in Gemini down here at the bottom of the chart, just off of Uranus. And so this is what I was talking about here before. Uranus and Saturn is laying the foundations for the new world. Let's just leave it at that. And we'll go over the shifts of the planets. I'm not going to do the whole year because really feel like it's kind of fruitless to do that. I mean, if I'm doing a reading for someone and they want to know what's going on 3 to 6 months in advance or where their focus will be, that's cool. But um, I don't know. I listen to the year of like overviews just to get a general idea. Uh, I like to, I have my favorite astrologers. But anyway, so Mercury here at the top of the chart at galactic center has been at galactic center for a few days. Galactic center, if you don't know, is the center of our galaxy where we believe everything emanated from Big Bang, or as the Gnostics believed that the goddess Sophia, John Lamlash, never mind. Um, Sophia, which means wisdom, some kind of emanation came from the center of our galaxy in the Milky Way, and whatever it was ended up here. But we get pulses of energy from this part of the sky, and it's very impactful and noticeable anytime planets go across this particular section of the zodiac. Right now, Mercury is here. Mind and communications, we are receiving messages, and I would say it's on an unconscious level and aspecting to Saturn and Neptune. It's the sense that we are nearing the end of a cycle and something is around the bend. We don't quite know what it is just yet, but there is a necessity to tap into and listen to our inner guidance, to the voice of God, and how do we connect with that other than taking time to be quiet in the stillness and the peace of this time of year? Because there's a lot of work to be done. And I also know that this part of Sagittarius includes the stinger of Scorpio. So words, very strong words. Um, there is an air of vengeance and anger and retribution, whether it's personal, you know, I don't know, vigilante or I don't want to, well, I do think that that's coming. Vigilantes are in the sign of Aries. That's a vigilante. That's a person who takes it upon themselves to uh, administer justice and punishment, and that is the flavor of Saturn in Aries. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of difficulty with these particular stars, but there's also a lot of strength and transformation. And this whole section of Sagittarius is, if we're looking at it from Sagittarius is the zodiac, but behind that is the actual position of the stars and the constellations, which we're talking about the constellation of Ophiuchus, which is the serpent ho- uh, handler. And it represents this sort of constant, the infinity symbol of the back and forth and adjusting and transmutation of poisons is what it deals with. So that's why it also is associated with homeopathy, because the concept of homeopathy is a tiny, tiny, tiny minuscule part of a poison is the antidote, right? So this has a lot to do with transmutation in the sense of alchemy, in the sense that we are turning lead into gold and taking difficult circumstances and gaining some sort of opportunity for spiritual growth here. And I think, given some of the events of late, it is, from what I'm hearing, the words of people. I'm not going to talk about that situation, but in Hollywood, um, the message I'm hearing from people and I do pay attention to what is said publicly as an indicator of where the collective mind is going. And it's we have to make change on our own, or we have to um, take that grief or anger and use that to for our own personal transformation, right? To do better or to see things from a different perspective and not get poisoned by fear, anger, um, the desire for retribution and revenge. Although some will stoop and they'll get slapped back by Saturn because Mercury square Saturn is, if you don't watch your words, you're going to get in trouble. Okay. It's a time for restraint in terms of what we say, how we express, and we may find ourselves not really knowing what decision to make at this point because there's so much information, right? And with Saturn and Neptune, it's hard to sort it out in Pisces. And it's a good time to just sit with things. The truth will reveal itself. The answer will come to you, especially when Mercury moves into Capricorn. The mind will be more practical, stable, grounded. Right now, it's just fakakta. It's all over the place. But in a few days, we will have Mercury going into Capricorn, and things will become much more serious. The moon is going to be in Gemini for the next couple of days, and um, it's a lot to sort out in terms of what to believe or what information is helpful versus uh, is just going to put us into fear, let's say. Um, I think that the news cycle will be very active, and we are moving up to the full moon. Uh, and Saturn, Neptune can create a fear of the unknown. Pisces is the unknown, Neptune is the unknown, and Saturn is fear, restriction. waiting to act because we just don't know what's around the corner. And that's okay. I always say, even, people ask me, well, it's Mercury retrograde. Like, I'm not supposed to make any decisions. Not really. You just have to, if you have to do something, you make a decision with the information that you have, based on what you do know, and be prepared to adjust it, modify it, make changes. Like, don't be married to a particular outcome. Be prepared to pivot. I think that's good advice for this year because um, it's going to be fun. For you people who don't like change, I'm talking to you, fixed signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. I don't know if Aquarius doesn't like change. Maybe. It depends on your chart. I like change. Uh, but I know a lot of fixed signs who are just, the embodiment of stuck in a rut. I'm comfortable doing this. Um, and, it's difficult when change does come because they're like, but I'm not comfortable with that. And what I see coming up, with the planets this year, it's like, well, it don't matter. You don't really have a whole lot of control over it. Or fixed signs like to control things. Pluto is moving into Aquarius, so that's a fixed sign, Aquarius, and Pluto is about control, but it's also transformation and likely looking at power we didn't know we had. Okay, so maybe there is power in change, right? When Uranus moves into Gemini, Gemini is Quicksilver change, turn on a dime, and we won't really have a whole lot of time for like emotionally grieving what we have to give up or the outcomes that we were avoiding, maybe we were afraid of. It's the kind of thing where, you know, we see change coming, we don't know what it's going to look like, so we're really afraid and we cling to the old ways and resist it and don't want to look at it because, you know, it's not what we want. And then when it comes, it's like rip off the Band-Aid, and then pain only lasts for a few seconds, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Now I see all the advantages to this new thing. So be like a child, you know? Be when the planets are in the early degrees, it's being sort of like a child where every day is new. Things might have been shit yesterday, but today we're going to the fair. Or, you're going to get some cotton candy and you're going to go on some rides and you forget all about yesterday. So having a short-term memory issue is not a bad thing always. Um, yeah. So let's kind of get into what the next few days will look like. In terms of numerology, 12/31, 2025. 2025 was a not is a 9 year. It's a year of endings. Next year, 2026 adds up to a 1, brand new beginnings. So that reinforces what I was saying about the planets, the slow-moving planets moving into new signs. Uranus going into Gemini, Pluto already in Aquarius, and then Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries. We're in new territory. And on top of that, it's a 1 year. So Nines um, are about endings and letting go and finishing up long-term cycles. It's a 9-year cycle. Uh, I have a 9 life path, so I'm no stranger to what it feels like in the last degrees of a sign or um, in the 9-year cycle and endings and letting go of things. And it's where you take all of the knowledge and experience and looking at what is it all about? It's like it's like the year in review, that everyone, not everyone, but like many people, the collective, we look at it, we look at the year in review, you look back on all of the things that happened and all of the changes. And with that, with an eye towards the future, to say, what can we do better? What do we want to leave behind? New year, new you. Um, those of you who follow my shows, all 5 of you who follow regularly and know me personally. No, there's more than 5. I'm kidding. I like to keep my circles small. Uh, if you notice, I did change my name on the screen there. And most of you know me as Susan Mayorga. And I have been Susan Mayorga for a long time, actually since 1995 or 96. 95 or 96. My wedding anniversary just passed this month. And Mayorga is my ex-husband. RIP. He's no longer with us. And, obviously we haven't been married for a long time, but because I had a child, I kept the name Mayorga. Um, but recently I sat down and did the numerology because it matters. And it's funny because way back when I started looking at numerology, I realized that the basic numerology, my life path didn't change, but the other numbers do change. And I looked at it a little bit more closely because I've been thinking for a few years to change my name back. Um, so I looked at it a little more closely and said to myself, oh, when I got married and the name changed, my numerology changed. My fate changed. It absolutely did. I had a child. I went through difficult experiences, that things that I had never faced in my life before and overcame them, you know? Um, it was transformative. And changing your name changes your numerology, which changes your vibration, which changes your fate. And looking more closely at my um, maiden name, my birth name, and the numerology, I said, wow, you know what? Same outcome, but the steps to get there were much more favorable. Uh, so 2026, it's a 1 year, new beginning, new year, new me. Life Path 9. This was my last year as a Mayorga. I am happy to announce. So I will be indeed changing my name this year. So something to think about. It's interesting how my original numerology was much more favorable. And I look at my life and I look at my life pre-Mayorga and post-Mayorga. Damn. I can't go back and change things, but I can change my name. Like, I want my old life back. Like, I was doing just fine till he came around. But you know what? I don't believe in mistakes. I know what I learned. I know what I gained from the whole experience. So it's not a big deal. However, just something to think about your numerology and New Year's and the 1 year and starting from scratch, and how the shifting of the outer planets, Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, highly transformative. Look to see where they are in your chart. Look to see if you have any planets at early degrees of any sign. That's where you're gonna sort of feel it, you know? Um, and you probably felt it a little bit earlier this year when Saturn and Neptune were in Aries for a little bit. Then they retrograded back into Pisces, and then it's like, oh my God, the same old shit, it's back. And Uranus moving back into um, Taurus, shaking up our physical reality and financial, you know, things going back to the value of physical resources and commodities, right? How about that silver? Very interesting. Very interesting. Interesting. Um, Silver is ruled by the moon, but if you look at where Jupiter is, Jupiter, which is retrograde right now, is in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon. Uranus in Taurus, Taurus, the moon is exalted in Taurus. So we're talking about all-time highs with silver. It's crazy. Anyway, it's going to change. Don't worry about it. It's all going to go back to crypto, but not Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's fucked. But anyway, Bitcoin ETFs had negative returns. Negative returns. But now we've got what do you call it? XRP ETFs. XRP is the new. That's the new thing. Anyway, moving right along. So the days of the week. Tomorrow, New Year's Day, January 1st. 2026 is a 1 year, a 1 day, a 1 month. So looking at the numerology, it's a three. Threes are growth, collaboration, 369. The moon is in Gemini. It'll be sextiling Chiron. It will be later overnight, maybe opposing Mercury, or maybe not. We'll have to see. Um, mm, mm, mm. Over the course of today and tomorrow, the moon will square the nodes, which means there's a turning point in our mind, our thinking, the information that we're getting. The moon will in conjunct Venus, the sun, and Mars. Venus, our values, our relationships, our resources, our government, because it is Capricorn, right? Older people, and the sun is the identity and it's the general focus for the month, wherever the sun is. And Mars is drive, ambition. Mars does very well in Capricorn, by the way. It's very driven, goal-oriented, strategic. It's movement forward as opposed to, in contrast to Venus. Venus is what we love. It's what we attract. It's what we value. It's yin and yang energy, right? Mars is yang. It's external, it's action, while Venus is internal, subtle, waiting and attracting, and yin energy. It's females and males, right? Mars and Venus. So, the moon being the collective energy and focus is wanting information. It's variety. It is, emotionally processing our mental state and processing the changes that are going on in society, in the structure of our world, of our governments, of tradition, and the passing away of things. And we're processing all of that. Again, um, the moon is the past. Capricorn energy and Saturn is the past. It's tradition. Mercury is more exact here tomorrow, squaring Neptune. Mercury square Neptune is foggy, illusion, delusion, extreme, extreme victimization or victim mindset, or it can be helplessness, feeling helpless, and or not really being able to see what's going on. Where there is a potential for deception here. So information that we're getting may not be true. We really have to test it against reality. And if you hear something, well, who said it? Where did that come from? We want sources, okay? Sources, because there's so much coming out with the moon in Gemini. All right, so that's January 1st. What else do we have going on? Hmm, the Mars last week, and then the Sun yesterday, and now Venus to no, Sun today, Venus tomorrow will sextile the nodes of the moon. So that's 10 degrees of Pisces for the North Node and 10 degrees of Virgo. So Virgo, the South Node, the things that we're letting go of, the past, we're moving towards the North Node, which is something hopefully more soft and compassionate and something that we can look towards a higher spiritual purpose or outcome or um, how we can work together, right? Capricorn is a collaborative sign. It's the sign of, who's in charge, but we're realizing we all are. Who's accountable? Who's responsible? Well, we all are. And that goes to the North Node in Pisces. We're working towards that. We're working towards how can we look at these things and say, what is our participation? And how can we participate on a more personal level, on all levels? So feels pretty positive. We do have the full moon coming up, so as you can see from today to tomorrow, it's like a very busy energy. There could be weather issues. Mercury is weather, Neptune is storms. Um, it could be something around ships or the sea or overseas. Um, what do we have going on here? Yeah, so there could be weather things coming up. Maybe January 2nd. into the third, there's a building energy. Now, one thing I want to point out here is we don't often talk about the declination. I don't think we do it as astrologers. I don't think that we talk enough about declination. It's important because you can look at Mars as driven, um, in pursuit of something. But what happens when that planet goes out of bounds, which is anything we like to say 23 degrees and 30 minutes, or is it seconds? I forget how it goes, but here you see 23:44. Mars has been out of bounds. Out of bounds is anything beyond 23, let's say 30, 23:30. And what do we have right now? Venus just went out of bounds, Mercury recently out of bounds, and today the moon is out of bounds. So what is out of bounds? It's where the planet goes to an extreme, right? So if Mars is aggression, violence, or assertiveness, or ambitiousness in pursuit of something, it is pursuing harder. It is angrier. It is more forward thinking. Not forward thinking, but forward taking action. All right. So, um, the actions are more overt. Just think about it as being extra. If Mars would do XYZ, it's doing it, turn it up to 11 type thing. But we have the moon, that's emotions, that's the masses, the collective, and it's always where the collective energy is going. In Gemini, it's mental. We are mentally stimulated, and Mercury square to Neptune is very creative too. I mean, there is a super creative energy happening here where it's like, wow, we could do this. We could do anything because Mercury is past its square to Saturn. Mercury square Saturn was restricting or delaying speaking or announcing, but with Neptune, it's like, fuck it. Like I've thought about the consequences, or I've been told not to speak, and now I'm allowed to speak, or I'm just gonna. And Mercury is out of bounds, and it's gonna say things that are surprising, shocking, things we didn't know. There's so much hidden in the last 25 degrees of Pisces. And with Saturn coming in there, that has been a time for accountability. Like somebody needs to be responsible here. Whose fault is it? Okay. A lot of stuff coming out. Um, and being out of bounds, now that the moon is out of bounds, all bets are off. The muzzle is off. Mercury is talking. And Mercury out of bounds, saying stuff we shouldn't, or saying things that representing things that are not true. Because Mercury square Neptune can be a total illusion, delusion. Um, yeah, it may or may not be true. Or it's true, but it's our personal truth. It may not be everyone's truth or bottom line truth, but it is someone's truth, but it's subject to change. When Mercury goes into Capricorn, statements that have been unfounded or flat out lies, well, there's going to be consequences for that. Mercury will face consequences, but it's already thought about it with the square to Saturn. It thought about the consequences. And then it squares Neptune. It's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to say it anyway. Or somebody has too much to drink and they're spilling the beans. Venus, out of bounds. Love, commitment, and money matters. It's all extra. It's all seems to have a huge impact right now. Money and the government, right? Taxes. Talking about taxes? Really? Really? Um, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's just a big focus. It's a big focus on the mind and communication and information that we're hearing, which may or may not be true. And Venus, right? Um, when Marjorie Taylor Greene says, there's a big tax revolt coming, you know what? To me, that's just stoking the fire. That is speaking it into existence. It's not happening, but once you suggest it, then people will start thinking, huh, you know what? That's a good idea. And, a lot of relationship issues, positive and negative, okay? Venus and Mars, those are relational planets. It's masculine and feminine, and it's in the sign of long-term commitment. It's in the sign of Saturn, the father, and family. So a lot of focus around that too. You know who we're talking about. I think you know. I'm gonna do the chart, okay? I don't know if I'll publish a video, but I'm gonna do it. I have started doing it. We'll see if I publish it. But anyway, so, the sign of ambition, of climbing the mountain, of never giving up, of the goat, right? The cream rising to the top. And it's difficult. Capricorn is a difficult sign. It's winter. It's hard. It's slow progress, but it doesn't give up ever. All right. What else we got going on here? These are the out of bounds. Now the moon. So something to keep in mind because while these three planets are out of bounds, everything is going to seem pretty extreme to the good or to the bad. And it's going to be a while. I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks. Let's see exactly. The moon goes in and out of bounds. All right, Venus starts to calm down. Mars starts to calm down in about a week, but Mercury is still out of bounds until after mid-January. As you can see here, Mercury's still out of bounds. So it's whatever impulse is coming in through Venus and Mars, through money, love, relationships, aesthetics, uh, resources, and Mars, how we go after it, how we assert ourselves, where our drive and our focus is. Um, it stays on the mind for the next 2 weeks. It's like, all right, I got this idea, and this is how I'm going to succeed. This is what I want, and this is how I'm going to go about getting it, right? That's Capricorn. That's Venus and Mars. What do I desire, Venus, and how am I going to pursue the object of my desire? And that's Mars. But we gotta honor Saturn. And Saturn is still in Pisces, and it's with Neptune. So it's like, you gotta be realistic. You know, you could be inspired to something, but if you don't have a good practical plan, or if you don't plan, it's not never going to come to fruition. Or if, you got to ask yourself, like, is this realistic? Is what are the goals that I set realistic? Or do I have to make adjustments because there's a new reality? There's a new factor involved. So the mind on the mental part of it with Mercury, we're sort of digesting something over the next few weeks till the new moon, let's say. Let's give it, I'm sorry, till the next new moon, which will be at the last degrees of Capricorn. So let's see. And that will involve Venus and Mars. And Venus has overtaken Mars by then. So we're leading with our sense of value, self-worth, pursuit of resources, of relationships, of, you know, um, what we desire, want to attract, how we view beauty and aging too. Capricorn, Saturn, that's about time and aging. So, it probably has a lot to do with investing for the future. And if you invest, it's time to look at where things are going because it is gonna be different. Things aren't gonna operate the way that they used to. So you're gonna have to make changes. And the out of bounds planets will bring those things to our attention. So I don't want to go too far into the future, but I always end up doing that anyway. Anyway, so out of bounds. Now you know. Okay, so today is Wednesday, Thursday. It's a 3-day triangulation, third parties. One is me, two is me and you, and three is, and baby makes three, or it's me and you, and then the third energy that is created when two people come together and it's building. Moon in Gemini and starting to go out of bounds, right? Yeah. Well, it starts to go out of bounds today. Oh, it is out of bounds today. What was I talking about? All right, so Thursday, Gemini. Lots of activity, social, not a bad day. Things are changing. The moon squared the nodes. We're going towards the full moon. And with the full moon, there will be a releasing and a letting go and letting go of things of the past, old lang syne. January 2nd, moon is in Cancer. It opposes Mercury. Now, Mercury by Friday, Mercury is more practical and grounded. It's conjunct Juno, which is the asteroid of partnership. It's a renewed sense of partnership and commitment, maybe really looking at what is the level of commitment and what is the level of emotion, emotional connection, attachment, um, and what we are looking for and how we view and speak of relationships and partnerships and family even. And the moon opposite Mercury is wanting to have a conversation, wanting to express emotion, wanting to express appreciation and loyalty, right? Capricorn is very much a sign about loyalty. Uh, I can tell you that myself and other Capricorns that I know, we really do value loyalty, and it's painful when someone doesn't stand up for us in the way that we would stand up for another person that we value. Um, I think it can be mistaken for being materialistic in a way where it's like, oh, I mean, I did this, this, and that for you. And now when it comes down to it, I see that you wouldn't do the same for me. Likewise, when you find someone who sort of loves the way that you do, where it's, ride or die, and um, it's a more equal commitment where you expect to be appreciated. Capricorn expects to be appreciated for their hard work and their sacrifice. Capricorn is sacrifice, right? And when you see that someone else isn't willing to make that sacrifice, that's when you start to see it's like, why am I giving to that, to somebody who just wouldn't do the same? And, it hurts, but then sometimes it's like, oh, all right, you know what? I'm really just gonna I'm gonna value myself enough to put my energy and resources and um invest in things that are going to provide a return on investment. That's very much a Capricorn thing. And some people can see that as petty, but the Capricorn sees it as, wow, I had your back. And then when it came down to it, I see that you didn't have mine, but you didn't mind benefiting from the friendship or the relationship. You enjoy the fact, of the work that I put in to the relationship. And you know what? Miss me when I'm gone. And you, the absence is palpable when a Capricorn leaves a situation because a Capricorn energy will, not really look at the fact that they're not getting back what they need from a certain situation, job, relationship, whatever it is, until they reach a low point, until their gas tank is empty and they need something because they won't ask for help or they won't really realize that they're not getting fed until they're starving and they're out of energy and they've given so much and then they stop giving and the shit falls apart because they realize, oh, I was the only one keeping it together. Huh. Now when I need you, where are you? Okay. And that's when shit falls apart. So, I mean, that could be happening on many levels, but I think a lot of people are wising up, maturing, and saying, you know what? I don't want to feed that anymore. I'm only going to feed the things that nourish me and the people who are there that have the same values as me. They're not looking at what they're going to get from it. They're not expecting me to parent them. Capricorn will parent, so will Cancer. It's a parenting energy. And there comes a time to grow up. And equal, reciprocal relationships, that's to me, I'm seeing that with the sun in Capricorn, flanked by Venus and Mars. It's maturity, it's shared values, it's things work better when we're not dragging dead ass around with us. Yeah, it feels good. It is good. And it feels good when you know that you're not a victim of any circumstance, that you do have a participation, which means that you can make a choice. You could be the first one to, I don't know, get that restraining order. That makes a big difference. Like who files first? Who files for divorce first? Or who files for that restraining order? Or who files for modification of child support? Make the first move if you can, or at least be thinking about what it is and what you feel emotionally comfortable doing. Okay. Where you intuit and sense that things are going. Head it off at the pass. Friday. That's Friday. We can be very emotional thinking about things, maybe thinking about partnerships with Juno there. Juno is the wife. And is there emotional connection? Do we have to have some hard discussions with people in the family? Any kind of relationship where there's an emotional attachment. And Saturday, that will be the third. That's a 5 day. So the second is four, which is stability. I look at it as sort of like a foundation, a pause. With the three, we're collaborating, we're building, gaining resources, gaining momentum. Then with the four energy, it's a kind of a pause and like, all right, let's take stock. Let's look at our foundation. We're building our house. And then with the five, a new thing comes in. We get thrown a curveball. The third is the full moon. So this is a big deal with family, with fathers, with relationships, with the past, and all this Capricorn energy opposing the moon. It's very strong emotional time. The moon is going way out of bounds, right? So, well, it has been out of bounds for today, tomorrow, Friday, and then it starts to come back into bounds, but it's still out of bounds until the 4th. Okay, so the third Saturday, yeah, Saturday, moon, women, family, fathers, mothers, um, very emotional time here. What else can we see? Centers around masculine and feminine with the Mars and Venus can be violence, violence within the family. Of course, we're going to be talking about that, right? Hmm. People speaking out about it. More information. Past the restrictive phase with Mercury. Mercury's out of bounds. It's just going to say. It wants to talk. It wants someone to be accountable. It wants to move the conversation forward. It wants to balance between masculine, feminine, mother, father, um, aggression, assertive energy, Venus, being mature and practical, goal oriented. A lot of emphasis here, I think, on the father. So people may be looking at family patterns of their own, of addiction. Neptune, Pisces, and Saturn is the relationship and family dynamic, and where do addictions come from, right? We're looking at that as a collective. Mercury square to Saturn. How is the father responsible, maybe, for setting the tone? How is where is the mother complicit in all of this? Not to blame and not to shame, but to be accountable or to look at it and say, from a realistic point of view, oh, these are my family patterns. This is the stuff that I've been trying to break free of. This is the struggle that I've been having or that I need to learn about how it has affected me, right? We go on from our families and we repeat the patterns, and that becomes our Achilles heel until we recognize what it is and say, all right, this is what I need to do to move past it. Because as much as you don't want to grow up to be your parents, you do in a certain way. You carry their DNA, you carry their astrological markings. We're affected by, the sins of the father. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on here. A lot to do with religion, the father archetype. So the full moon will be at 13 degrees of Cancer, which will conjunct a few hours after. It will conjunct the star Sirius and I think the United States natal sun. So a lot to do with the past and government and things having to do with the changes, right? The changes. So, what else do we want to look at? What else do we want to look at? Yeah, well, that's Saturday and then into Sunday. The moon goes into Leo around midday-ish. No, late morning on the East Coast, earlier morning on the West Coast after making a sextile, I'm sorry, a trine to Saturn and Neptune and coming off the full moon. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention here where the moon will conjunct Jupiter. Now, Saturn and Jupiter are two sides of the father archetype in astrology. We look at those planets. Saturn is the planet, the dad, that says no. And Jupiter is oh God, I can't remember the Latin term for it. Pater, pater, something. So it's like Jupiter's the generous dad, right? Or the dad that says, you know, I love you no matter what. Or, I'm going to love you until you change your ways, right? Um, Unconditional. It also really, I think, with Jupiter in retrograde in Cancer, I'm seeing where we can look at perhaps, I mean, one example is where things have been too permissive or sort of liberal mindset. And, I'm not like, not so much politically, but like liberally minded, where we can give too much, let's say, to our kids, or be too permissive, or uh, not withholding rewards. And maybe because the planet is retrograde, looking back to the past to say, well, maybe that was a mistake. And maybe, that didn't teach the right lesson. It didn't send the right message. And we're looking at this sort of wounding within families and maybe this sort of sense of faith and belief too, because Jupiter does represent Sagittarius, which is representing our faith, our beliefs, our philosophies. And in Cancer, it's the family and parenting. So we could be looking at this for ourselves, like what kind of parent did we grow up to be? You know, is it the exact opposite? Like I had nothing, so I'm going to give you everything. Or, my parent was cold, so I'm going to be the most warm, loving parent and generous but failing to provide Saturnian values, which is boundaries, limitations, consequences, accountability, responsibility. We're looking at a lot of that. And so as the moon is full, we are looking at our relationships and our family dynamics. Maybe we're not looking at ours, but we're watching it play out on the stage. And Jupiter, as Jupiter continues to retrograde until it goes direct, it's going to get to about 15 degrees of Cancer by March and into April. So it's sort of a process of individuation between now and the full moon of April, where we are looking at the individual and relationships within the context of family. And we will harken back to where we were at now with this full moon, with all this Capricorn energy. Mercury is going to come along to oppose Jupiter. Jupiter's the truth. We're also looking at laws. What is being put on display for everyone is the consequences of certain laws, especially in regard to, let's say, family law, right? Family court, um, privacy versus, there's the courts s- and legal issues, right? Because that's Jupiter. Jupiter and Sagittarius is laws, all right? We're reviewing these things, we're looking at these things because we're seeing them play out and saying, if the laws were different, how would this situation have been different? Where would the outcome be different? And with the nodes being in Pisces and Virgo, we we are talking about mental health too, right? And the consequences of how the psyche is shaped within the experiences of early childhood and the family and, the results of all of that. So I think we will be seeing new laws by March into April when Jupiter goes direct. Said I wasn't going to go too far into the future, but I mean, this is why it is kind of important because it's like we're having this conversation going back to the past and reviewing things, let's say, in terms of Jupiter, which is retrograde, and that's going back to the past. Internal reflection on Jupiter, laws, um, permissiveness, the permissive parent, let's say. Um, or our faith or our values or our philosophies in Cancer in the family, also regarding the mother, because it is Cancer. But when Jupiter goes direct, then those concepts can get externalized. So we are talking about the laws, let's say, regarding mental health. Mercury will be retrograde in Pisces, moving towards the North Node and taking action because it will meet with Mars. And I think that we are reaching a turning point in terms of how we deal with mental health issues. It's not going to change overnight. There has to be laws put in place regarding laws that would honor the individual choice and freedom, also the transparency of legally what we get to know. That's going to be a big issue during this time between now and spring. Um, and the conversation happens while Jupiter is retrograde. Big conversation happening when Mercury is retrograde because it's sort of like we need to balance the conversation about who is the victim here. We could see the perpetrator as a victim, but there still has to be consequences. And we do need to look at issues regarding um, personal responsibility and um, mental health and the right of the public to know certain things that are going on within the legal system. Okay. I see a lot of this changing when Jupiter goes into Leo and starts to make a trine to Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Um, because Aries, especially with Chiron being there, there's a lot about the rights of the individual, right? Even criminals have rights, but there's a big debate about it. And laws are going to be changing. Let's just say if you're looking at something legal and a legal process and how it plays out and when, look to when Jupiter goes direct and Mercury is in retrograde, because that will be a pivotal time. March, April. It's like a big crescendo that we're building up to. And the peak of emotional intensity that sort of pushes the boulder down the hill is this full moon. A lot of energy with the out of bounds planets. I mean, the moon goes out of bounds north or south. There's two ways that it can go. Um, right now, there's a lot of energy with the with Mercury, Mars, Venus, um, Mercury, Mars, Venus. Yeah, out of bounds in Capricorn. They are in what we call a southern declination. That means they're low in the sky. They're below the ecliptic. Northern declination, Jupiter, Uranus, um, that side of the sky is northern. Those planets are in northern declination right now. Aries, well, everything past um, Pisces into Aries gets to be more on the northern declination. But so southern declination, I've always looked at that as sort of being attached to the past. We're resolving certain things from the past. It's coming up for review so that we can let it go and move on.org. So it's big doings, but whatever's coming up now, expect that the next big sort of the big deal would be March into February into March because we'll be going into Pisces, as you can see. Mercury will go to the end of Pisces and reverse itself. We're talking late February. So, whatever issues we're dealing with now that's coming up, expect things to come up again and need to be resolved again in February. In February, we're going to have Mercury retrograde station at 22 degrees and then conjunct to Venus at 22 degrees. This is a very important point. I'm seeing this 22-degree mark as being something to watch. Um, the last Mercury retrograde that we had, Mercury stationed at 20 degrees of Scorpio, but it also had conjunction um, with Venus, I believe, at 22 degrees of Scorpio. So I made mental note of what's going on, what was going on at that time. And when I'm seeing more 22-degree conjunctions with planets, I know that that's going to come up. I know it's going to be dealt with, and I know what it is, right? It's not going to be a surprise to me. And I see it coming again at the end of February. And to the nth degree, because that's when we're having the eclipse. As you will see, the solar eclipse, hang on a second. No, the lunar eclipse is coming during the Mercury retrograde. When we have a retrograde and an eclipse, Venus is also there. It's going to be intense with money, finances, relationships, communication. Um, Things that we didn't know about will come up. Things that were repressed and hidden will come up. Things that we didn't deal with right now when we have Mercury square to Saturn, which is there, um, where Venus will be in March, and Neptune. If you didn't deal with it now, or you don't see it now, um, it's going to be a bigger problem by the beginning of March. You've got to deal with it because Mercury retrograde is going to make you go back and deal with it where we've got Venus and Mercury, and these degrees of Pisces are very, it feels like a drowning victim. L- Don't take it literally, but it's like these things are not just happening to you. They are happening for you. But if you ignore the warning signs, you're going to be up shit's creek. Note to self. I'm dealing with it the best I can. But, you know, a lot of this can be out of our control too. We can only know that this is the effect and what we're dealing with when it comes up now, when it's come up over the past couple of weeks with all the, we had Mars square to Saturn and Neptune. That was harsh. That was anger. That was a spoiled child not getting their way and acting out in the most vicious way possible. Okay. Um, the consequences of not dealing with something, a lot of anger, frustration, and Mars going out of bounds was just out of pocket. So Mars squared that area. Um, this Venus, the sun, so it dealt with a lot of energy. So look and see what was happening over the last couple of weeks, if it was difficult, if it was new, if it was challenging, if it was beautiful. There is some culmination of this coming up, February into March. And I will say that financially, the issues could be very unexpected, um, implications and consequences and or rewards for our good works, charity, you know, positive, you know, what you reap. you reap what you sow, right? Help because you've helped other people. Um, so it's not all difficult and bad. And the positive changes that we're making on an internal level or in our physical, you know, um, the structure and how we run our life, right? If you start exercising now, things will look really good by the time February, March comes along, and eclipses tend to bring things up that need attention, and it releases things that we need to let go of. And health crises can come up during this time. Um, we just need to review some things. We need to review our finances. We need to review our relationships, and just some things need to get sorted out before we go completely into the new, before Mars crosses the North Node. Mars in Pisces is it's a little bit wonky. It's not a great place for Mars to be. And it can be avoidant, passive aggressive, and indirect attacks. But once Mars crosses the North Node, then we have all the planets once the moon gets there, right? So by March 17th, Mercury is still retrograde. Weird things happen during Mercury retrogrades. And it almost feels like this is the last sort of push to like deal with your stuff, deal with your karma, deal with the family issues, deal with um, the mental health stuff, the addictions, getting healthy, having more of a spiritual outlook on life, self-sacrificing versus martyrdom, you know? Um, we're getting past a lot of things here. Now that Saturn and Neptune are out of Pisces, look for storms, look for things around the ocean, seas, subconscious things coming to light, dreams, suddenly realizing your purpose. Mercury retrograde conjunct the North Node. It's sort of like a remembering of, wait, I'm so much bigger than this. There's so much more. Anyway, it'll be an interesting time. But back to now. Let's go back to now. Anyway, things can seem heavy and intense over the next couple of days. Moving up to the full moon, it's very emotional. It can be very, very good. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot of positivity and opportunity to put in hard work and have real, true emotional connection and um, partner with people in life, friends, lovers, marriage, whatever, business, everything, with people of shared like mind and shared level of commitment. Because it's the kind of thing where you really, really, really appreciate the people in your life if you've been able and fortunate enough to surround yourself with people who you don't have to carry emotionally, financially. If everyone's pitching in the family or you know, really being on the same page with somebody. But if that's not the case, this is an awfully lonely time. I would say it's very emotional, and someone doesn't have family, doesn't have that kind of connection, um, it can be very lonely, cold, sad, right? It's kind of looking at that Saturn, Neptune, saying, like, this sucks. What's on the other side of it? But the thing is, not to sit there and wait to see what's going to happen. This, to me, the point is making a choice to say, you know what? I want better. What can I change? What can I do? Should I just sit here and wait for things to change or sit here wallowing in, you know, my loneliness or toxic relationships? No. You can choose to say no, choose to have a boundary, choose to do something different. So here's where I think it's like, all right, the rubber meets the road, and there's going to be some hard work. And once we get to the eclipses in the spring, it's going to be a little weird. There's going to be some adjustment, maybe. Um, re Revisioning, revising before we move forward completely. And there's a lot that's leaving, a lot that's done. All right. The new world is here, but the past is not completely gone. I mean, think about it. When we got the railroads, did people not ride horses anymore when we got cars? Were there still no horses? And some people using horse and buggy, and some people had cars, right? The new and the old is going to exist side by side simultaneously for a while. And I think just to make the leap, just to find out where things are going, what the new world looks like, is going to lessen some of the pain of change. And it can be exciting, can be very exciting. But right now, I think there's still a lot of fear of the unknown. You know, I mean, I look at it this way, like with digital currency. I mentioned to a friend recently, we were talking about crypto, and I'm like, yeah, like a lot of interesting things are going on. I see what the banks are doing. I see how they're using digital currency. They're putting the infrastructure in place and international settlements and, the BRICS wanting to going to a cryptocurrency standard and, um, just really things that fascinate me. And the other person's response was, yeah, it's very concerning. And it is concerning if you don't know what's going on, or if you think that you're not going to have any personal agency or choice of how you participate in the new system, right? Because there will be transparency and people are worried about their money being tracked and everything being out there on a public ledger where anyone can see it, right? But there are ways to stay private. But how are you going to know unless you educate yourself, right? So I think that is the solution, and the antidote to fear is knowledge and not resisting the change because you don't trust it and you know, you don't understand it. I'm not saying you should trust it. I'm saying, the potentialities for both things, freedom and enslavement, both exist simultaneously. And what we are realizing now, or need to realize now, is that we have a choice in every area of life, right? Um, if we're in a profession that is phasing out, dying, laying off, we gotta look and see like what our options are, right? Or do we just want to sit there and be like the victim and blame it on, the government and AI and blah, 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 blah. We can't do that. We can't afford to, because if you do that, like that head in the sand sort of ostrich mindset, um, it'll be a world of hurt come eclipse season. So being aware is half the problem. At least you'll know what your options are, right? What's out there? Where do you want to go? Anyway, I think that wraps it up for today. And I think I'm back. I think I'm back. Um, Capricorn is making me come back. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe if you like the content. There will be more. Um, I have done some event charts, celebrity charts, true crime stuff. I haven't done it on my channel. I've actually done it. If you want to go and look and check out Beyond the Strange with Dave Cruz, he's got a channel here, and we did talk about the Reiners, and I looked a little bit at Nick Reiner's chart. Um, my intention is to do that on my own chart, on my own channel, and because I'm very into true crime and legal stuff, and I like doing celebrity charts. I look at that all the time. I just haven't done any videos. But if you like it, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Thank you. I appreciate you. And feel free to leave a comment and make suggestions of people's charts or things that you want me to look at, because there's a lot we can look at between the planets and the asteroids and the fixed stars and all kinds of other esoteric things. We can gain a lot of insight. And I want to know what people want to look at. And so, yeah, you can check out Dave's channel, look for it, Beyond the Strange. I've done quite a few shows with him over the past like 5 years, four, 4 or 5 years. I think we've known one another. And he likes to talk about current events, and will have me on every once in a while so we can look at the astrology and stuff. So, um, that being said, if you're interested in reading, you can contact me at, you can send me the email at astrolunachick@gmail.com, or you can text me on the Astrolunachick hotline, 914-222-1231, and let me know if you're interested in a chart reading. I do videos, I do audios. I don't really do written things unless it's a really, really short. If you wanted to look at like, one question, what does this look like? What does the retrograde look like? If it's like a super basic and easy thing, I will do a written analysis of it. And you can check in with me to see what will be what we'll charge for that. Anyway, I don't have a price list. I don't have a website. You just have to check in with me, tell me what you want, and I'll fit it into what your budget is. So, that being said, I think it's time to say goodbye. We're going to stop sharing here, and you can look at my beautiful sunset. Just remember, those trees are not dead. They're just sleeping. And to watch the curves ahead Go slowly because we don't know what's around the corner. It could be a deer, it could be a moose, it could be your neighbor walking their dog, or some idiot driving down the middle of the street. So be prepared. All right. Anyway, that's it for today. And ciao for now. Happy New Year.